Hey, Monkey Man. I was grinding ram horn, and it smells like Bigfoot's. It stinks. I got some new equipment in my shop. This is a even heat, and I came to them and I had this custom set up. Like, I hate programmers, especially the computer ones that are touchscreen, and they're super complicated, and I'm pretty stupid and I don't understand them. And you're always second guessing, and I don't want something preset. Like, I want like actual just numbers. And so we were able to do this one. You just turn it to the number that you want, and then that's it. And it's got all the modern stuff. This goes up to 2400 degrees. Like, it's badass. So they custom made this for me to make it, or whatever. But when I went to them, they had a model like this from like the 70s, and it was called the turn and burn. And so basically we brought it back, but with a digital controller. Pretty cool. Was this in here before the last one I filmed?
Yeah, but you already seen.
And this thing, it's pretty cool. So today we're gonna forge a Kukri, since it was, what, you did a poll or something? So we got a request for people to learn how, or for me to teach people how to forge a Kukri. I normally forge Kukris out of ADCR V2, but I don't have any, so, and I forgot, and so, but I have some of this 26C3, so we're gonna use that. So typically what I do for a Kukri is this piece is just shy of 24 inches because it fits in a shipping box, because I live in Hawaii and it's expensive. So normally what I do is I measure and I find the middle, and then I just cut it at an angle, so then it's just easier to start forging. I'm not gonna do it like that because people are gonna be like, you should forge a point. I obviously know how to forge a point, so that's why I just cut it, because it's just the quickest and fastest way. If I'm gonna make one cut this way, why not make it a cut this way to get myself moving in the more forward direction? I don't really feel that people that don't know how to forge a point should do that. They should practice, but I have many years of forging points, but for whatever, I'll forge a point today from square stock, especially when it's roughly about 2 inches wide. It's really hard not to get a fish mouth, but like, people freak out, but dude, if you get a fish mouth where these 2 points create a C, just grind it off. Like, who cares? It's not that big of a deal, you know what I mean? About half this bar to do a pretty big Kukri. Okay. So instead, I normally cut them, but for this thing, I think most people get them like this size. So we'll just start this way like this. And then, so basically what we're doing is we got our bar. We pretty much only need half. So this is about 11.5 inches. And that will make a good size kukri. It's by 2 inch by 1/4 inch thick. So we're gonna start off first by forging a point. Really what the misunderstanding sometimes of forging a point, and it happens and it doesn't happen sometimes, it just all depends, but people really, what they think is they're pushing this corner in and leaving this as the point, and that's not really what's happening. What you're trying to do is create enough force to come down so you create a bulge right here so that it slowly starts coming up. You're trying to get this material straight down to push out a bulge. So this actually becomes set back. So this is not actually technically your point. So what happens is right here, you whack this in and down, and you whack it hard and fast right when it's super soft, and you can create like a little push out, and this will be your point. So it's actually about 1/3 up is where the point is actually coming from, which is kind of a misunderstanding. And when you can wrap your mind around this, then forging a point from square stock makes a lot more sense, you know, versus you're thinking that you have to draw this point out and this point in, and that never really works, you know. So right off the bat, use a heavy hammer and hit it quickly out of the forge. First thing in the morning. Gotta soak a little bit. A lot of steels are pretty like they look hot right when you first put them in, but you gotta kind of let them. They're still a little stiff, and then once you get to working them, it gets softer. Oh, we had a crazy week. I'm leaving today to go to Steve Schwartzer's house. It's gonna be me, Brian, my son. I'm flying Adrian from Arizona, and then Jason Knight's already there, and with Tiger Lily and Liam and a few other people. Lucas from Grizzly Forge is coming down, and we're gonna work on Steve's shop and get him a little better situated. He's a dude that never asked for help, and he's just been kind of chipping away at his shop, and I kind of want to get it done, so I scheduled just a week of just madness for us to get him situated. So yeah, we'll be headed out there today, and then after that I got some stuff I gotta do in Nashville, and then a couple other places, but we leave tonight. But Dane insisted that I do this kukri video since we're rolling. Kukri is like probably my favorite knife to forge. I learned it from Jason Knight. Jason Knight told me, like, hey man, you really want to get to know if someone like can forge or not, ask him to forge a kukri. And And recently I got to forge with him, and I did one all by hand, just like I do it today. No power tools, and no presses or whatever, or power hammers. And he was like, "Yeah, you got it." So it's good, like, you know. I think it's a great weapon. I think it's a very useful weapon. It's extremely hard to forge by hand because you're trying to forge a bevel on a knife that's curving the opposite direction, you know? So a lot of people understand that a knife starts off with a downward facing point like a sax, right? A lot of people understand that in basic forging. And because they understand that when you start hitting this bottom, it creates the knife to curve up, and then you have a finished product, right? That's basic ABC of forging. But what a lot of people don't understand is this ramp right here, that's gonna be your clip, or that's gonna be your drop point. So what people don't understand is when you have like a drop point knife, how long you make this is how long that's gonna affect the clip. If this clip's longer, then this clip will be longer. If this clip's longer, then this clip will be longer, you know? And so this part is actually not just bending it down to a point, but like strategically forging this part. What you're doing is actually the transition to where the blade will change. And that's just forging at a different level, you know? Really important is once you start forging on the top and the bottom, it makes it thicker. And that's what, like, it's really important as you start forging a profile that you keep maintaining the rest of the thickness the same. Don't let it get all thick in the front. Always always be maintaining the same thickness. Oh, I'm sick. Been sick for like 2 months. God. So as we're forging this point, you want to go back to the original thickness of the bar. So you want to keep looking. Okay. Okay. So that's that. I'm gonna cut this bar. Now, I like to get the point figured out. So now that we have the point, is it okay if I sit on this thing? So we have the point figured out right now. So now our knife looks like this. Like this. And now we just cut it, so now that's what we have. So now what I like to do is figure out my distance for the handle. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little stop right here. We're gonna figure out the choil of the anvil. I typically do it on this, which is a guillotine. I only recently got that. There's many ways to do it. You can do it on a corner of an anvil. You know, you could hit it with a hammer this way from the top. I mean, there's many ways to do it. Morocco does it that way. I mean, this is the cleanest way that I've found. But if you don't have that, you know, you can use a corner of a sharp anvil. I'll show both, you know, so you guys can get it. This one's made by the same guy that makes my hammer, John, Sunset Forge. Has a bunch of different things you can put in here, all kinds of other things. I only use it for this, but there's a lot of uses for it. But I have the big boy version of this. You can find this on Amazon for like $3.99. The link's in the bio. You ready? Okay. So we're gonna put it in. Okay, so that's just to kind of show you it getting started, right? And then we'll go over to the other one. And I don't have a ratio for like, how much do you use for the handle? I don't know. Sometimes I really gotta make it thin, like in the distal taper, but that will make you good, you know? Like, you gotta just be able to eye a situation and try and do the math in your head and or like visually see like there's this much mass, it's a 1/4 inch thick. It's a pretty thick piece of steel, so I think I should be okay. There's two kind of makers. There's guys that are like Morocco that can do the math per ounce and tell you how much they can get out of it. And there's people like me that are like, oh yeah, like that much will get you this much or whatever. Like, there's just two methods to it, and it, like there's no right or wrong method. You know, some are faster, you know, and some are more accurate. You know, and pick your poison. Pick what, you know. I just try and do what makes me happy. Like, I don't care if somebody else can figure out exactly and they have less waste than me. I don't care. Like, cool. I don't want to sit down and do all that math. Time is more important to me than a little bit of wasted metal. But I respect those guys that can do it. It's awesome, dude. I can't. I'm an idiot. Okay. So same thing. It's all thick right where we changed its profile. So now I want to take that thickness back down to even. See how thick it is right here? Right there? So we're going to give it a good, keep bringing it back. And then we'll come back and do it again. It's a little different doing it from 2-inch. It's good. It's gonna be a big ass kukri.
What do you usually do? Like a square?
No. I mean, I do it out of I don't know. I guess I typically do it out of 2-inch, but just not 1/4 inch thick. You know. Sometimes I do it thinner just because it just depends on what I have in my place, you know. Okay, now that's that. Now we're gonna do the next swell, which is, now that we got it like this, now we need to add that second bump in here. When you create a swell in a handle like this, it's the natural conform of your hand, and this swell right here is what prevents it from turning in your hand, right? So your hand can pull tight around the handle, and these handles, that swell in that wider portion helps it not spin around in your hand. What? Well, we don't cut it out. Yeah, like I'm gonna forge this handle exactly to what the handle's gonna look like. I'm not gonna make it and then like cut it out and whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I enjoy doing it and it's a challenge. And I often think about if you do it wide, like do it live, like you're forging and you forge out a knife and then you're like, oh wait, well typically this would be done like, you know, you should be able to just do it, like, you know. But that's just for me. Like I forge live across the country doing stuff for people, and you know, and I really enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, like, who cares? I think stock removal dudes are I think some of the stock removal guys are the sickest grinders and like most like original style like of like ways to like make it look more interesting, you know what I mean? Like they have, it seems like stock removal guys have higher standards in certain things. It looks pretty stupid right now, but trust me, it's gonna get there. Okay. Okay, so now that I got that rough down, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna bend the butt of it down on the vise. Just to while it's thick. Don't do it while it's thin. Do it while it's thick. Okay. So now we gotta take that thickness out, and now when we take that thickness out, it's gonna get longer. I don't make handles this big. thin it out. Get it back to that same thickness that we were working with, remember? Okay, so we're getting close to there. So now we gotta make that as fat. No, we gotta make the butt of the pommel wider. Come here. Come, Lobo. Come here. This is my good boy. Come here. Good boy. Did you go play? Were you running around? Hmm? Hmm? My good boy. What do you think? Let me see you hammer. Okay, so now we're gonna slowly start widening this base like this. So you're gonna hit it like a fan, like this with the peen. Because we're really trying to get this side to flare. And you have to be careful, you don't wanna go too thin. We're gonna distal taper this tang, so it's okay that it's thinner than the rest. Okay. I mean, you'll see, like, by the end of it, you'll see why people just grind it out. It's so much faster. You know what I mean? And if you're trying to make money and stuff, you know, I get it. But this is the art, this is where the art form comes in, you know, to be able to practice. I have the luxury of being able to train like this all the time, and I'm not worried about, I gotta make 20, I gotta make 100 of these. So we gotta just grind them out, you know? I don't have to worry about it, just make one, work on it, dial it in. I haven't trained jiu-jitsu in like a week. I hurt my arm. So now we're gonna, I use this to thin stuff out. It's basically like a bunch of little peens, but it's just more stable. Like if I really wail on this, I can pinch the knife almost in half. And so you kind of have to feather it. Whereas when you spread out the little peens, and what it does is it leaves all these little ridges. And then when you hit that ridges, it kind of moves in the direction that you want it to go. So if I want the knife to heal, to grow, I hit it this way, and then it leaves all these marks, and then when I tap it flat, it goes. So we're gonna hit it this way to kind of quickly thin this handle out. I saw this in like some Japanese book, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And I called Steve Schwartzer, and he's like, oh, that's what it's for. And I was like, sick. Ready? Some of it's the hammer and some of it's the swing. You gotta really get after it. Gotta bring the heat to it if you. So people don't like, I'm gonna do this all by hand. We're not gonna use one power tool, like one press, one power hammer, and we're just gonna all do it by hand, and like the details that you can put in it. But when it comes time to get after it, you gotta be able to get after it, you know? You want it to move, it takes force, you know? I can hit harder than that thing, I think, sometimes. Some of the things like with the, I don't know, have I ever gone over like swinging a hammer? Yeah. You just want to basically remember that if you're out here, it's heavy, and you're pushing, it's gonna get heavy. Or if you're standing real hunched over and it gets heavy, you know. So you want to be able to pick it up. It's a lot lighter this way than it is this way. So you pick it up with your knees, bring it up, loose 2-finger grip, and you pull and just let it go. And it'll just come back up. And so you have a pivot point of your shoulder, pivot point of your arm, your elbow, pivot point of your wrist, and then a pivot point in your finger. And that's why somebody like me, who's tiny, can swing so hard. It's just because of leverage, you know? Does that make sense? Pendulum. It is a pendulum. I'm doing a YouTube video. Somebody gotta pay our bills. Children? No, I'm just kidding. You finished that table? Okay, so we're gonna fine tune. We're gonna fine tune this a little bit afterwards, but we got the bulk of it done. It's got a distal taper in it, already forged in. And now we'll move on to the rest of it. Gotta keep it this way. So now that we have this section of it done, now we're gonna take this in and create the part of the kukri of the recurve. We get that set in, and then we'll keep going. Gross.
We're doing math.
Okay, so now that we got that, now we're gonna move to the front. Don't worry about if it's the right bend or whatever. Don't worry about that. We'll bend it all in the end. Staining up now. Just touch the blade if you have to. Touch the blade, don't touch that baby blue. It stains so easily.
So gnarly. I love those skins in there. Where the fuck did you
So now that we have this in here, now what we're gonna do is widen this. Now this needs to get wide like this and longer. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna widen first by peening it, and we're gonna widen the thing to where we want, to the width we want. And then we're going to then go for the length that we want. It's always width first before length, because you can't ever get width out of something too thin. And just remember, we're trying to leave this spine thickness fairly thick. Kukris don't have very thin spines. They're very forward weighted blades, so that when you pull through, it just follows through, and then but light enough to have a quick return. But so you want some meat on the spine. So unlike a chef knife, we're gonna leave that part pretty full. So we're gonna need to pull our width down. The other side. Oh, this guy's back brace. You know it cures that. You know it cures that, so you don't have to wear that. The back brace. Some sit-ups. I don't do sit-ups. Okay, so now that bro,
It's in my shopping cart.
give me.
Oh, come on.
Look, you think he's gonna edit this out? Look at this old man Japanese.
For the camera.
we gotta when you go to you go to Tata's house, bro. Okay, now that we got our width, now we can start going for our distal, and that will give us some length. Bust out the big boy hammer. Ooh! Golly! Hup! Hup! Nice. This is an 8-pound hammer. See, this is my hammer, and then this is Bryan's hammer. He just looks like this. Hey, pound for pound, I've never seen a human stronger than him. Like, dude, we have a 50-gallon fuel cell, and there's still, like, even when you empty it, it's still fuel cell. Even when you empty it, dude, it's so awkward, and he bear hugs it and carries it out of the truck empty. And then he bear hugs it and lifts it up and puts it in the back of my truck. It's wild, dude. It's the most awkward thing to pick up. Caleb says he's done it. I've never seen him do it. He's like, I could do it too. We're gonna call him out. I want to see it. I'm not talking shit about Caleb. Caleb can kick all of our asses. I just don't believe that he can lift the fuel cell. Caleb can kick a lot of people's ass, but he can't really lift a lot of heavy things. He's gonna be so mad. He's like, well, f you guys.
Yes.
When you watch Caleb in the ring, dude, he's just like boom, 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 just doing his shit. Like, it's wild. And then we go lift like weights. He's like, ah. But then I'll train with him, and he'll just body slam the shit out of me or whatever. It's wild. Brian's first day of CrossFit, he did a strict muscle up. That's just ridiculous, dude. It doesn't take people years. There's like 90% of the world can't do a strict muscle up. Are you?
That's not important.
Oh, bro. Why, dude? Why? I took it so far. You didn't need to go any further. We should have this, but then add like Instagram page to the link, like of all the people we're talking about. Have Caleb's Instagram link to all the people we're talking to. Okay, so now we're gonna take this. We're gonna put this bend back in. And then now we have to anticipate. So remember, as we forge this inside bevel, it's going to want a banana. So what we're gonna have to do is compensate for that and bend it over so that when we tap that inside curve, it goes like right to where we want it. Okay, so we're gonna take and bend this. Okay, so on the next one, when we forge that inside, it should give us the right bend. Let's switch this around. start working on that. So now we're gonna work on profiling it, correcting all the little things, and then we're gonna go back to forging it thin again. But for now, we're just forging, like I had a little bit too tight of a radius in there, so I'm fixing that, and then we can bend it back and then kind of like slowly keep working at it. I don't like bending it so out of whack that I can't bring it back. So we forge a little, correct the profile. Forge a little, correct the profile. Okay, so now go back. It's gonna go faster now that it's thinner. Sometimes hitting it on this on a radius to bend it is like the least. Sometimes when you hit it with a hammer, it pushes one side, pushes the other side. So sometimes hitting it on something, the inertia bends it forward, and it's a little bit more less whatever. When you're hitting it from one side, you're always upsetting it. And so sometimes just hitting on there, it creates the least amount of changes to the overall profile and just kind of bends it where you want it to bend. So you see this forging, it's almost like we're grinding it in, right? Because with a kukri, you don't want a big, we're trying to do a brute to forge kukri, so we're pretty much gonna try and forge this shape in as close as we can. And it's one key thing to remember while you're forging in, like when you're forging it to sharp or forging it to shape, is when you look at it, if you were to cut it, it's thick like this, right? sometimes people think that this is forging it, you know, because it's thin right at the point. But really, what you're trying to do is get it all the way up. You need to forge it like almost, you have to imagine you're grinding it. It can't just be thick and then kind of beveled at the end, because when you go and grind it, it's just thick already. So you got to really forge in like you're imagining that you're grinding it. And if you forge it like you're grinding it, you won't have any problems, you know? So it's not so much right at the edge, it's above the edge. And of course, at the edge is important too. See it take that bend out? So what we're really trying to do is get this back to flow off, you know? Try to get that back to really just flow. So what I do, reason why I leave this so wide is you're able to adjust it for somebody's hand. Like because the handle hooks back, you know, sometimes you have to add a little bit more for their hand, you know what I mean? So I leave just that spot real wide right there on the hook back, is just so that I can grind more into it or less depending on the person's hand size or what I'm deciding to kind of make, you know. But it's always kind of good to just leave a little bit of material in that area. But I mean, as you can see, like we took an 11 and a whatever 11-inch bar, 11.5-inch bar, and turned it into a full-size kukri. When you forge the handle, you lose a lot less material. there's a lot of interpretations of this knife. Like traditional ones, they almost look like a hockey stick. It's like bang, you know, and then so this is my interpretation of it. Is it traditional? Not really, you know. Like, I'm not claiming that it's a traditional kukri. Traditional kukris are like hidden tang and with a round handle on it with a big flare it almost looks like a hockey stick. Like, this is my interpretation of a kukri. It's in the style of Jason Knight's, you know. It's who I learned from, you know. And then I put my own spin on it and my own things on it, you know. Bango. Double swing. Just some light straightening. Some planishing hits. And you can forge a clip in it and pull like that fin that I normally put in. I do it from right at this point where I pull in a fin, lift it up, pull it in, and I basically pinch it up and pull it in. This one I'm not, because I want to show the full distal in the spine. So when you look at this, it's distal thin here, comes to full thickness, and then gets distaled up into the point. It goes back to full thickness and then distal. So it's distal to both ends. One, to lighten the rear for weight distribution, and two, you want the tip to be thin for penetration and also for waist displacement for coming back up. Then if you look on this side, let me heat it up again. You can see how distal it is, how thin it is, all the way evenly on this cutting edge. So you see how thin it is? All the way through, and then how thick it is. So nothing is straight on this knife, and that's the benefit of doing it with a hammer and nothing else, is because you can basically hit it like you were going to grind it. So basically we need just a little bit of grinding to make it cut, and a little bit of grinding, you know, in the handle and stuff like that. But basically what you have is all your geometry is put in already into this knife. And so basically, you know, it's almost a full 1/4 inch back here, but on this side it's ready to just, I mean, basically you could drill your holes, grind a little bit, and heat treat it, you know. So if you don't like buying belts, it's a good way to practice your skills. And I'm sure there's a lot of better ways to do it, but this is the way that I do it. I'm sure there's a lot of design, like maybe less bend, more straight, maybe add a fin to it. I mean, there's a lot of angles. This was my approach that I forged today, you know, and that's what you got. it.